What does landscape photography mean to you? Is it a verbatim recording of a scene captured for posterity, or is it something more? To me, photography is not just a verbatim recording of something that was there. It is a way of expressing my creative side. I've always been into the arts, drawing as a kid, writing music as a young adult, and now photography has overtaken them all. But what is it that we find so captivating about photographing landscapes? I think it is a multitude of things, and it can only really be expressed by how we respond emotionally to a scene. In an attempt to explain why I photograph landscapes, I'm going to describe the shooting of a slight number of my images from my homeland Scotland. I love shooting in winter. It's a tricky affair in Scotland because the weather is often very bad. But as I've progressed as a photographer, I've discovered that there is always a photo waiting behind every dark cloud. This shot is a perfect example of that. It had been snowing quite heavily, and as I came around the bend near the Buccleuch of Moor in Glencoe, I saw that the snow was obliterating the sun. It was around 9 AM in the morning, which is quite late for me to shoot. I often find the best light is gone by this time, but because the sky was full of clouds heavy with snow, the light was still very soft. I was attracted immediately by how the sun was being masked by the clouds in the sky. It wasn't so much the subject matter for this shot, but more the quality of the light that drew me in. On an emotional level, I think there's a sense of hope in this shot. With very short days in winter which seem to last for an eternity, it can be very hard living in Scotland. The sun breaking through like that just lifted my spirits when I saw it, so I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to shoot this. This was taken one January morning in 2004. My only trouble with this location is that it has in recent years become over-photographed. It's tough to be original with a popular location, but I think what is key is being open-minded about your approach to a new place and seeing it your way. Whatever grabs you when you arrive should be what you strive to capture. I think what works for me in this shot is the large rock in the middle ground. It almost looks as if it's lifting itself out of the water. Coupled with a very long exposure to blur the tide, the rock has an almost surreal aspect to it. But the composition works because there is interest in the immediate foreground, then the midground, and then the horizon. Find my eye moving back and forth between all three areas of the photo. You could almost argue that this image does use the rule of thirds, but in a vertical sense. If you divide the image into upper, middle, and lower, then you'll see what I mean. This view of Rannoch Moor is from a different angle than I would normally shoot from. There were two reasons for this. I liked how the sun was rising and I wanted to keep it centred in the middle of the frame. And because the light was soft, I knew I'd get the exposure to work, even though I did have to resort to a 3-stop hard grad and exposure compensation of around 2 stops. The other reason was that the Loch was completely frozen over, and I wanted to capture the surface covered in a dusting of snow and ice. This turned out to be a precarious position to shoot from, and I had to compromise with the immediate foreground. I would have liked to have been closer to the foreground rock, but I was constrained by the edge of the Loch. So I settled for this composition, which I now feel works very well. There is some nice distance between the bottom of the frame and the rock, which gives the surface of the Loch some space to show off the gradual tones of the ice and snow. This shot's strength for me is definitely about the quality of the light. I love to shoot in different weather conditions. I guess it's my way of trying to stumble upon something special in the landscape. The chance encounter can bring something surprising to your photography, and shooting throughout a storm is certainly one way to invite the chances of capturing something interesting. This shot was taken from the Bay of Lake on the Isle of Egg, looking out towards the Isle of Rum. A storm was approaching from the sea, and I anticipated that I would be able to use it in my photograph. But it was the patterns in the sand in the foreground that drew me in to shoot from this vantage point, and the sky was doing wild things too, so I was trying to get them all in. Using a wide-angle lens and keeping the camera high above the ground allowed me to point the camera down towards the sand and accentuate the sand patterns. Note that the beach takes up around 2/3 of the image. I made a decision that the beach patterns were the main point of interest, but if I'd cropped the sky too much, the image would have suffered. I used a 2-stop hard grad neutral density filter to control the sky, and I also used a long exposure to convey a sense of movement in the sky as well. Composition and subject matter are important parts of a good image, but the quality of the light is important too, and you don't always need a great sunrise or sunset to achieve that.